Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Accelerate My Agency webinar. My name is Chip House. I'm the CMO here at SharpSpring, and super excited to have everybody today on today's St. Patty's Day. And you can see we're very on brand with our colors here today. If you're not familiar with SharpSpring, we've built our entire business model around serving the needs of agencies, just like many of you on the call today. Which is really why we develop content like this. And we're really excited to share this content with you today. A little bit more about SharpSpring. So if you thought SharpSpring is just a marketing automation platform, we're really absolutely a lot more than that. Again, so we built our business around agencies, but really we help businesses grow their revenue with a myriad of tools that all work together: email, mobile, social, landing pages, even retargeting ads built on a powerful CRM. And it really allows our agency partners and their clients to optimize their entire funnel, right? Their entire customer life cycle. So that's who SharpSpring is. I'm super excited to introduce our guests here. And we're so lucky, frankly, to be able to attract Baer, Ann Handley, and a phenomenal partner, Marnie Ochs-Raleigh, today to talk about how you can accelerate your own agency. And I don't want to give it all away, but I'm going to hand it to Jay to kick us off.
Chip, thank you very much. Really excited to be here. How we got here is Chip and the team at SharpSpring put together a contest where agencies from all across the planet applied to be the winner of this contest. And the winner of the contest, in this case, Marnie Ochs-Raleigh and her team at Evolve Systems in St. Paul, Minnesota, received some consultation from Ann Handley, America's marketing sweetheart, and myself, the founder of Convince and Convert. And Ann and I spent several hours with Marnie and her team doing a modestly deep dive on where they are, where they're going, and how to get there. Marnie, so that our attendees today have some context for the before and the after, if you will, would you take a couple minutes just to frame up Evolve Systems and the type of agency you are and why you applied to this contest?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And I'm just thrilled and honored to be here today. So Evolve Systems has been in business now for nearly 2 decades. And when we initially started our company, we were based on a technology platform and had really wanted to focus in on e-commerce. But for some reason, Minnesotans weren't too eager to put their credit card online. And so we inadvertently ended up building 2 different businesses. We knew for e-commerce that we needed to really understand how merchant card processing worked. And then we had multiple clients that came to us that didn't have the need for e-commerce, but they needed a website. We really focused in on doing the technology side of the development process and worked with a lot of the ad agencies and marketing companies in the Twin Cities. They would provide us with their design files, and then we would put the technology behind it. What happened was Google started to make a lot of different changes, and we all know about their algorithms that they change. And a lot of these design files that we would get did not have the correct UX UI and were not designed with search engine optimization in place. And so we would have to go back and add SEO to these beautiful websites after they were built. And it just got to be a whole lot of additional work where we weren't seeing success immediately upon launch. So at that time, we started to make a shift and brought on our own designers, and we're providing more of a full service for our clients. We've built our business off of referrals, and we were working with outside designers as well as internal. And what happened was we noticed that as soon as the website was launched, that we needed to add additional services in order to retain those relationships. So we started to make that pivot into a full system agency a couple of years ago. And that's when we found SharpSpring, because it really seemed to be easy to work with, and it solved a lot of the issues that we were having. And we signed up for this program because just the opportunity to work with 2 fabulous people, Jay and Ann, you guys were great. And Chip putting this program together has been a game changer for us. And we're really looking forward to sharing the lessons that we've learned and the pivots that we're going to be making. And I'm glad that other people have the chance to be able to learn from our path and where we're going forward with this.
Thanks so much, Marnie. That's fantastic. How many folks at the agency?
We have 14, so we're a small, tight family knit.
Fantastic. All right. So what Ann and I did was spending time with Marnie and her team. We put together a series of recommendations. There was a lot of things that we could have told Marnie that maybe they should do, but we wanted to focus on the things that we think she must do. And coincidentally, almost all the things that we're going to talk about today that we advise Marnie to do really apply to almost any agency. Ann?
Yeah, I think so. Not just any agency, I would say more broadly, almost any small business, because I think some of the things that we're going to talk about today, the 9 non-negotiables, are the very thing that I would focus on as an agency owner, as a principal, but also if I ran any small business, and things you can advise your clients to do as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I've been an agency owner now for almost 30 years, so I've learned a lot of these lessons myself and continue to learn them. Also, Convince and Convert is a SharpSpring partner, so we use the tools every day as well. And Marnie and her team are also SharpSpring partners, but haven't really unlocked the full capabilities of the tool that Chip alluded to earlier. So we'll talk about a little of that as well. The first tip that we gave Marnie and the Evolved Systems squad was to add humanity and voice everywhere. There are a lot of agencies out there. SharpSpring alone has thousands and thousands of agency partners. And fundamentally, they all do kind of sort of the same thing. And realistically, is your agency that much better than everybody else at a particular service? Maybe, but maybe not. So you've got to give people a real reason to choose you. And in many cases, that's not the service or the price. It's about what you are and what you stand for. Ann, you want to take this?
Yeah. Yes, 100% what Jay just said. And to build on that a little bit, as Jay said, what you do or what you sell is almost table stakes, right? But really what the value add is and what will truly connect with your prospects, with your customers, with your clients, not just now, but down the road, is a sense of who you are, how you deliver the work. And I think especially when you think about an agency or a small business, it's so critical to think about how do we actually tell that story? How do we pull that out? And the most effective way that you can do that, I believe, which is why we listed this as number one, is to add that humanity and voice everywhere. Now, one thing about these words of humanity and voice, we hear it a lot in marketing. We hear it a lot in business. It's like, well, be human, right? Said by a bot that pops up on your website. And so what does that really mean? And so we tried to really explain more fully, what do we mean by add humanity and think about your voice everywhere? And so there's a couple of suggestions here, places to start, places to hook into this idea of humanity and voice. The first is that your firm, your business is a collection of people. Marnie just said there's 14 people at our agency. So are you highlighting those people? Really show who those people are. Show their faces, not just on your About Us page, which is kind of an obvious one, but even on less obvious assets or less obvious places like landing pages, for example. Give people a look into who you are, a way to really showcase who you are as a collection of people.
So many agencies have an About Us page or About Our Team kind of section of the website. This is that section for some friends of ours at Bliss Integrated Communications, full service firm out of New York City. And I really like how they do this. They have the sort of film strip in the corner of the individual. This is Julia. Then they've got a video from her. And then they have a thing that says read the Q&A, which is a handwritten Q&A to a little questionnaire about what makes her interesting. And then, Ann, you found this example from a law firm of all places.
Yeah.
Not usually known for like rich humanity, but I want to play this video. Go ahead and set it up, and then I'll play it.
Yeah. So essentially, what you're looking at is a video from a partner of Levenfeld Perlstein, which is a law firm in Chicago, Illinois. I would challenge any business out there to be more human first in their approach. And what Levenfeld Perlstein does is rather than just having an About Us page, they have video bios of their attorneys and of people who are part of the firm. So who you're looking at or what you're about to see is Shannon Hartzler, and she's talking about her guilty pleasure. Now, why this is so significant is that rather than just having their attorneys or their partners talk about, why did you go into law? What's your most compelling case that you ever argued? Instead, they're asking them very human questions to pull out different parts of the principal's personality. So Jay's going to play this video now.
I don't have a guilty pleasure. all of my pleasures are guilty. I love romance novels and Oscar Mayer Wiener cheese stuffed hot dogs and terrible television like Project Runway. I don't watch The Bachelor. I do have some standards, but yeah. And I love lowbrow art, and I love bingo and raffles and all of that stuff. I love it.
If you're looking for an attorney who loves bingo, you're looking for Shannon Hartzler at Levenfield Pearlstein. And, they're not like a goofy law firm. They're a real law firm that just are comfortable with the humanity side of it. Now, Marnie, one of the things that we talked about in our work together is that historically, even though you have a tremendous number of great stories in the agency and humanity, that you haven't really been fully comfortable kind of showing that side.
Well, it's that vulnerability piece. And that's one of the takeaways that I took from our sessions together, was just getting that permission to have fun and to let our true personalities come through, because clients are not necessarily going to be looking at the tone and how we are being professional. They want to be able to connect and know that they can have a relationship with somebody. And so the permission that you guys gave us with that has really changed a perspective. And for that, I'm very grateful for.
I should say real quick, friends, if you've got questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. We'll take as many as we can at the conclusion of today's broadcast. We see several chats coming in right now. Hello from South Africa, from the Texas Hill Country. Carl from Los Angeles. Alyssa says hello. AAF Baltimore. I used to be on the national AAF board back in the day when I was just a child. So shout out to AAF Baltimore. The second thing that we talked to Marnie about, Ann, was to decide on your why us. On your why us. What do you mean by that, Ann?
Yeah, and so I think it definitely relates to the humanity piece of it and the voice piece of it. If you sell a product that a lot of other people sell, and even if it comes down to, the decision that your customers make or your prospects make between you and somebody else, I think really being super clear on who you are and why a customer or a prospect should choose you over a competitor, that's your number one job, right? That's the number one story. And so the way that we approach this was to think about, how do you actually do that? How do you tell that why us story? How do you answer that question?
Yeah, we call those campfire songs, because if you've ever been to camp, they always teach you songs and you will never forget them in your entire life. And they tell the same songs, or they teach the same songs to kids every single year, like the songs never change. And the same thing should be true in your agency. You've got legends and stories and concepts of why you are different and special, and you have to repeat those over and over, not just on your website, but off your website as well. You've got to nod to those campfire songs on your LinkedIn profile when you're doing speaking engagements and podcast guest appearances, all the places where you and your team exist. You've got to keep striking the same chord. The third thing that we talked about, and we've actually done a lot of work on this in my own agency over the last 2 years, is to name your ideal customers, to say, we want to try and work with companies that are this size and in this category, but to really name them, to say these are 100 companies that we really want to work with because they're right for us and we're right for them. And that's what we asked Marnie and her business development team to think about, to actually research and identify approximately 100 perfect accounts, like actually literally logos, and then understand in each of those accounts to whom you're selling. Is it the owner? Is it somebody in IT? Is it a chief marketing officer? Is it a combination of those? Who is the buying committee, if you will, in each of those accounts? And then follow those people in social media so you can kind of see what they're up to, and then build lists of them in SharpSpring. Chip, I think SharpSpring is an unbelievable tool to bring together the marketing parts of your organization and the sales parts. You want to comment on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, a couple of things. I mean, from an agency perspective, right, we heard this a lot during the Acceleration series last fall, really understanding who your ideal customer is and what your niche is as an agency. But, with SharpSpring, being able to identify your known contacts when they come back to your website, and being able to, via visitor ID, see actually when they're engaging on your website, see what their lead score is, so you know how they've interacted with you before, contextually understand what pages they visited, et cetera. That can be just super powerful to the sales conversations and the outreach that you have when you start engaging with those contacts. You can be really real time, but also super relevant as well, Jay.
Well, especially when the sales cycle can actually be pretty long, longer than you think, right? People are kicking the tires of your agency on your website, reading your blog posts long before, in most cases, they ever reach out for a contact. Marnie, any comments on this idea of being more specific about target customers?
Well, I think it's certainly going to be a whole lot easier to be creating that content. And, I did some reflecting over this last weekend, and we've built our business off of referrals. And so we've been working with clients as they have come to us. We haven't done a lot of marketing for ourselves. We can do marketing for our clients, but we're kind of like the cobbler's children, where we've been missing our own shoes here. And building out the ideal clients for ourselves is going to be an easy thing for us to be able to do, since we already know who our ideal audience is. But even narrowing that down more is going to be a whole lot of fun. And I think that we're going to be able to see and measure KPIs through SharpSpring a lot easier when we've got this type of a targeted approach. So I'm excited to implement this next quarter.
You bet. I see, Jen, your chat on YouTube. Number 2 was find your why us. Find your why us. Number 4, focus on problems you solve, not services you offer. This is a challenge for a lot of agencies, including myself at one point. This idea that you actually do email marketing or SEO or landing page optimization or social media ads or social media management or whatever. Yeah, you might engage in those activities, but that's not why someone's actually hiring you, right? Nobody can pay their rent with good search rankings, right? It's a means to an end, not an end. So you've got to understand what problems you're actually solving. Ultimately, you have to make your clients money, save them money, or both. And the services you offer have to sort of tie back to those goals and objectives. And so the best agencies reframe their website copy, their case studies, other marketing and communications materials that they produce to focus on problems. Not to mention the fact, in the best case scenario, you also reframe your Google ads and your other marketing around problems as opposed to specific services. And anything you'd like to add there?
Yeah, I think, this is a trap that almost any business that I've ever talked to falls into. And so and I get why it happens. We're excited about what we do. We're excited to talk about what we do. But, of course, as the old trope in marketing says, your customers don't care what you do. They care what it does for them. And so just always ask yourself this question of like, well, and then what? Like, so you offer SEO services, and then what? So that you'll rise to the top of search rankings. Well, and then what? So ask yourself that question until you finally walk it back to the actual business goal for your customers.
Absolutely. And in fact, this is one of the most popular pages on our site at convinceandconvert.com. We have thousands and thousands of pages, just as Ann does at Marketing Profs, but it literally is called 17 Problems We Solve. It's in the top navigation. If you look to the top right there, you'll see it. And this is a page that just says, here's the 17 problems that we solve for our clients. It's a really popular page. We don't merchandise it. It's just there in the navigation because it strikes right at the heart of why we're in business and how we make people money, save them money, or both. And so whether you do or don't actually create this actual page, the principle of that, I think, applies not just to agencies, but as Ann said earlier, to all businesses. Marnie, anything you want to add on that point?
Well, I personally downloaded the content that you had on your website for this and think it's brilliant, and appreciate the information on the problems, because like you said, even though you can list what your services are and you think that you're going to be doing the SEO work so that you get picked up on that, you're missing the humanity part of really addressing what a business owner's concerns are. So instead of just looking at this from an agency lens, look at it from your ideal audience and what it is that they want to learn from you.
Yeah, well said. And Chip, I think this has got a lot of applicability to SharpSpring's strategy as a company as well, because SharpSpring very overtly is interested in solving problems of agency. It's not as if you're not if you're not an agency, you can still license SharpSpring, and I suggest that you might consider that. But the company is really focused on agencies and solving those problems, and I find that refreshing and incredibly useful.
Yeah, I think it's maybe even some of these slides. It says agency first, or agency focused always. And really that's how we've built the business. So much of our business is really built around positioning ourselves and actually solving the needs of agencies. I don't know that we have it boiled down to 17 problems this way, but I'm going to do that. That's the next thing we're going to add to our list, Jay.
I was just going to say, I mean, in a way, like this whole conversation here today is kind of meta, right? Because we actually are doing exactly this.
Yeah.
Good point.
It is meta.
Good point. Yeah. St. Patrick's Day. The fifth non-negotiable for your business in 2021, an email newsletter, a must read. I would be shocked if fewer than 90% of you tuning in don't have some kind of an email newsletter or a regular email publication. I certainly do. Ann has one of the most popular email newsletters in the world. Marnie has had one historically that we're trying to make better. Ann, what do you think?
Jay, this is my love asset, right? I mean, is that a thing? We're going to make it a thing. The email newsletter, vastly undervalued by not just agencies, but so many businesses. And I am on a personal mission to help each and every one of you rethink your email newsletter. So just a couple of quick points. As Jay and Marnie and Chip know, I could talk about the email newsletter for the next, day and a half, but we don't have that much time together. So just to real quick, just to hit on 5 things that I think that your email newsletter has to deliver if you want to make it a must-read, and you do. Number 1 is to think about what you're delivering. You're not. I think a lot of companies think about their email newsletter as a distribution strategy for other pieces of content. So they focus on the news piece of that. They focus on what they want to say versus the letter. So focus on the letter and not the news. It means focusing on that letter, that opportunity that you have to communicate directly with that one person who is opted in to hear from you, who has said, yes, take my email address. I trust that what you have to say to me is going to be relevant and valuable. So really think about that as a really special opportunity. And I believe that deeply. And I think if you just shift your mind to that, it'll just change the game for you. The other thing that we counseled Marnie about, Marnie at Evolve Systems sends that email newsletter once a month. I think in this fast-paced world, once a month is not often enough for your prospects and clients and customers to hear from you. I think that to build that kind of momentum, that to create this sort of relationship with your customers and make it a must-read, it's got to be at least every 2 weeks or every fortnight, as I call it. I think at a minimum, if you can do it weekly, great, but I don't think it needs to be weekly, but I think every other week is an absolute. The other thing that I think is undervalued or not embraced enough by a lot of companies is sending that welcome email. And it's kind of an obvious thing, but only 57% of companies, not just agencies, but all companies actually send a welcome email. So when somebody signs up for your email list, is there an auto-generated email that goes back to them and just says, hey, thank you, welcome, here's what you can expect to learn? And the reason why that's so important is it's not just because it's a welcoming, but I also think that the tone of it is an opportunity to set expectations about how you're communicating and what your customers, your prospects, the folks on your list can expect. And it can set expectations, but it can also start to signal belonging through the language that you use and how you craft that welcome email. The 4th thing is to deputize a newsletter anchor host. Have it be from somebody. Don't have it come from just your brand name. You may just it may come from your agency name, and that's totally fine, but make sure it feels like a letter. Again, embrace that letter opportunity. So make sure it's from somebody. Anoint an anchor host, a sort of host of your email newsletter, just like a podcast has a host, or just like the nightly news hour has a host. Make sure that there is somebody at your company who you've anointed in that role. And the final thing, and before I toss it back over to Jay and Marnie and Chip to comment on, is merchandise that email subscription form effectively. So again, don't just invite people to subscribe. Tell them what they're opting into. Invite them to be part of your community. What you're looking at here is my own email newsletter sign up. If you want to peep at how I do all of this, you can absolutely sign up for my email newsletter. But I merchandise this email newsletter across everything that I do, and I let you know exactly what it is that you're signing up for. It's not just a newsletter. I tell you, you're going to get writing tips. You're going to get high-spirited shenanigans. I really want to create the sense of it's something different, and here's what it is.
Who doesn't want high-spirited shenanigans?
Who doesn't?
Especially every fortnight, man. So.
And St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
Marnie, I know you're excited to take a new swing at the email newsletter. How's it going?
Well, we are in the midst of working on some new branding. So what we're looking at is what is the layout needing to be for the newsletter, and then what is the content, and making sure that the content is definitely relatable for that humanity aspect, but then also being created so it's for our ideal audiences as well. So it's we had a conversation about it just before our session here, and it's something that we're looking forward to putting the new design in. And with the tools that SharpSpring has for that newsletter, it's going to be really easy to create the new template with some updated information on it.
Absolutely. I will say, however, and I think Ann will back me up on this, I wouldn't worry too much about the branding, because if you really accept Ann's premise of it being more about the letter and less about the news, the look of the email newsletter is certainly secondary to what it says, its tone, and its overall value to the subscribers. I send an email to our audience twice a week, and the one that I send myself has no graphics at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
It has, right? It's just text, because I want it to be more letter, less news. So don't let the look don't let the look interfere with the value.
Great advice.
Yeah, the other thing that I would just chime in here, again, I told you, let's just make this 3 hours and just commit the next 2.5 hours to talk about email newsletters.
Sure.
I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. Mike has a comment about quality over quantity. And when we're talking about frequency, yes, 100%. Always make sure that what you are able to offer every fortnight or every week or twice a week if you're Jay is absolutely of value. So start with quality and then think about the frequency, secondarily.
Yeah, look, and frequency solves itself, right?
Yep.
Ann and I have had this conversation. You send email as often as you have something valuable to say until your stats start to go down, in which case it's not as valuable as you thought.
Yes,
Right?
yes, exactly.
They'll tell you what your frequency should be. You don't have to guess. They will tell you. Just look at your stats in SharpSpring.
Right, and will they miss you if you don't show up? That's the way that I think about almost all marketing.
The sixth thing, and I should note, friends, that the sequence in which we are telling you these things are the sequence in which we believe Marnie and Evolved Systems and you should address them. So you shouldn't worry about content sprints, which I'm going to tell you about in just a second, until you know why your why us exists, right? You shouldn't worry about an email newsletter until you've got your humanity figured out, okay? So there is a method to the madness in this sequence. I want to remind you of that. That said, number 6 is to create content sprints that focus on problems. You may remember just a few moments ago, our advice was to understand the problems you solve more so than the services that you offer. Once you've locked in on those problems, 17 in my case, you want to then create a focused content initiative to create content assets in several different formats about a specific problem that your target accounts have. So remember, we talked about find 100 target accounts, figure out the problems they have, and then create content methodically about one problem at a time. The way we like to do this is you take 60 days or so and you do a content sprint in which you put lots of effort into this one thing, and you create content that focuses on how and why you can solve this problem. And it is long form downloadable content, short form blog posts, social media, infographics, videos, emails, haikus, puppet shows, all kinds of different content, but you're trying to focus on the one thing. What happens invariably with agencies, and I have been guilty of this for probably 9 or 10 of the 13 years that this particular firm has been in business, is you end up being a mile wide and an inch deep. You're creating tons of content, but never with really any concentration on one topic. You're making a little SEO stuff, and you're making a little PPC stuff, and you're making a little programmatic, and you're making a little customer experience, right? And so you've just got this like collection of shallow opinions in 300-word blog posts about a whole bunch of stuff, and that's not going to work. It doesn't demonstrate any real expertise. Google doesn't really like it either. It just isn't going to work. So you want a surround sound effect of these content sprints where you're actually making a bunch of stuff in a bunch of different formats about one problem that you solve. Ann's going to walk you through an example.
Yeah, and I love that phrase, Jay, the surround sound content. So I wanted to share this example from Ahava Lead Tag. Ahava is the principal of Aha Media Group. Aha Media Group sells content strategy services and copywriting, all kinds of content services to hospitals and healthcare organizations. So the bigger, one of the campfire songs they sing, or one of the ways that they help their clients, is that they help their hospitals, their healthcare organizations who are part of AHA, communicate about difficult healthcare topics. Now, arguably, there's no more difficult healthcare topic than COVID, right, for hospitals. So if we can go to the next slide, you'll see how AHA Media Group and Ahava has implemented this concept of content sprints. So one of the things that she did recently is they produced an ebook about how do we think about long-term telehealth marketing success. So lots of telehealth stuff going on right now in the age of COVID, but how do we actually think about how do we integrate that in our hospital marketing long-term? And so you can see here just the various ways that she is atomizing that concept and creating this sort of surround sound content, as Jay mentioned. She's got an infographic on 5 steps to fight healthcare news. She has a video series in the upper right corner there in which she's interviewing healthcare experts about how they're adapting to COVID-19. And she's touching on the telehealth conversation throughout everything that she's doing here. Bottom right, she's got a cheat sheet about how do we communicate clearly during COVID-19. That's part 2, because she already had a part 1. And then on the bottom left there, you're seeing her tweet in which she's also like creating, again, that social media. That leads to back to the ebook. So it's definitely a sort of surround sound atomized approach.
Marnie, I know that you felt when we talked about that sort of mile wide and an inch deep that represented to some degree your historical content creation roadmap. What do you make of this content sprint approach?
Well, I know it's going to be a lot easier to put together that strategic plan and then to be able to create the content, because you're able to focus on the message that's needing to be delivered rather than just doing sprinkles of information here and there. And I'm also looking forward to it from the standpoint that we'll be able to go a lot deeper, and that expert voice will come through with the types of content that we can create. And then, we do this for a lot of our clients. It's like you create this bulk of copy and then you use it in multiple different places. And so you're able to repurpose it correctly. And when you pointed out to us that, we're not doing that for ourselves as significantly as we could be, but we certainly do that for our clients, it was just another aha moment. I mean, it's, trees, forest, it's having somebody else take a look and put the same amount of heart and effort into our organization as what we have for our clients just was a gift. So it makes total sense.
Glad to hear it. This next one is to create lead magnets for your ideal customers. So we've talked about identifying your 100 key accounts. We've talked about identifying the problems that you solve. We've talked about creating content sprints to then focus on how you solve those problems and why those problems should be solved. Then what you want to do is what we call sort of de-anonymize your audience. So if you're doing this well, you're going to get some percentage of those top 100 accounts and the representatives thereof to visit your website and consume your content, whether it's an infographic or a blog post or whatever. But then you also want to create some other what we call lead magnets that aren't necessarily about problems you solve, but are frankly just catnip. They're just content executions that those target accounts simply must consume. So for example, as you all know, Marnie and her team are in St. Paul, Minnesota. They focus on B2B clients. You could research and create an ebook, downloadable PDF, where your ideal customers are the star. And that's the key to this approach. Build assets where your ideal customers are the star, not you, them. So for example, Marnie could create something that's called the top 50 powerhouse women in Minnesota B2B. Now, if you are a female executive in one of the B2B companies in Minnesota, and there are lots, the chances of you downloading this, if you hear about it, I suspect is pretty high. You then promote this lead magnet with search, with social, with video summaries, etc. And then you use a SharpSpring landing page to house this asset, and then use SharpSpring's lead scoring and follow-up sequences to then take some of these new email addresses and nurture them towards a sale, or at least a sales conversation. This is how we have done this for our own organization. We do a lot of consulting, not certainly by any stretch of the imagination exclusively, but we do a lot of higher ed. We have 10 or 12 university clients right now, and we've identified the top 65 or so schools that we thought were big enough to work with. And we literally wrote this. We researched it and wrote it in-house, the best websites by America's top universities. And we literally ranked every single website by the top 65 or so universities in the country, put it on a SharpSpring landing page, promoted it with ads, with social, with search, and by far a majority, most 75% or so of the universities covered in that guide have actually downloaded it from us. Now we're able to have follow-up sales conversations with those organizations. And we actually have 6, 8, 10, 12 of these executions. This is just the one that's the easiest to understand in this context. Chip, do you want to talk about SharpSpring and its ability to sort of make this work well?
Sure. I mean, whenever you're doing a campaign, right, you're going to want to create some ability to track it. So a UTM code, probably a customized landing page specifically for that campaign, just as you've done here, Jay, and, if necessary, also further use dynamic content to personalize a landing page based on what you already know about somebody, and that can also manifest itself in the form that you present on the website, right? So could be a progressive profiling form, right, where you're not asking things you already know. So thereby you're reducing friction on the page, and people kind of are much more likely to readily say, hey, get your free report right now. So, it's really a kind of a combination of things that just, is second nature to us, I guess, in the marketing team now, certainly at SharpSpring, because we drink our own champagne here. We use our own platform for everything we do. And so, everything is a lead magnet with a campaign and a tracking code, an optimized landing page and a deliverable asset. So if you're on today's webinar, you probably came from a SharpSpring landing page, in fact. So
yeah, I'm sure that's
hopefully
true.
That helps.
Yeah, thanks, Chip. That's great. So then once you've got these downloads and now you have this de-anonymized audience, got a hand raiser, if you will, what do you do with them? Well, the best thing to do is to score those leads and then nurture them automatically. So one of the really neat things that SharpSpring does is the ability to custom score leads based on behavior. So you can assign a certain number of points for downloading this, assign different points for downloading that, etc. And then you can assign points for which web pages people have been to on your site, how often they come back to the site, how often they open your email newsletter, how often they click in your email newsletter, et cetera, et cetera. So you can custom assign all the points that you want for all these different behaviors. And then those are constantly updated in real time. So you can look at your visitor ID report, and I do it literally every day. And anybody who's a particularly high score, you're like, oh, wow, this person went from 0 to 100 in 3 days. They're clearly super interested in what we have to offer. Either I reach out or somebody on our business development team reaches out. And then we have a program where for every form completion, every time somebody downloads anything from us, we build a customized automated nurture sequence in SharpSpring. I'll show you more about that in just a second. Chip talked about this just briefly at the outset. I just want to drill down on it for a moment. SharpSpring Ads is a really cool component of the SharpSpring platform because it allows you to literally, in like 2 clicks, do remarketing ads in Facebook and other platforms only to people who have downloaded your ebook about higher ed websites, or only people who have subscribed to your email newsletter in the last 30 days, or any other conditions that you create. It's like click, and you're running ads against those people. It's spectacular. It's really, really powerful. This is just one of the kind of nurture sequences we have in our organization. This is how it's represented in SharpSpring, where somebody opens it and then they get filtered based on the topic they want. Then we send them another one, and then 2 weeks pass, we send another one, and then 4 days pass. It's really easy to create and manage and adjust these in SharpSpring. You just kind of move the boxes around to figure out what works best for your particular audience. And I know you do some automation stuff at Marketing Profs as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, the key here is the simplicity of it. I know SharpSpring does this incredibly well, but while this can feel overwhelming, it's really not. If you really dig into it and look at how the tool works and play around with it a little bit, it's a whole lot simpler. And once you set it up, it allows you to tweak and to test. And it's a very powerful system, but it's also very simple to use.
Yeah, Marnie, you and your team were doing some basic automation and lead nurture activities. We've advised you to do more and to automate it more to free up some time amongst your business development team. Mm-hmm. Does this scare you? Are you thinking, man, that's going to be an awful lot of work? Like, to Ann's point, how do you feel now?
I feel as though this is going to give us some return on time. One of our goals in working with our clients is to provide rock solid strategies that in essence give our clients return on time with their schedules. And utilizing a tool like this for ourselves is being implemented. And I'm excited to give that same gift back to our sales team so that they can feel very confident in working in the swim lane that they're meant to be in, and that's business development. And automating all these steps is going to be an easy process using the tool.
Yeah, actually,
I was just going to add, Jay, if I could. No, thanks for that, Marnie. By the way, and I'm not sure we haven't talked about it. I don't know if you use the life of the lead feature inside of SharpSpring, but it's just a super popular way to view the life cycle of your leads as they interact with you over time. And it's really the most powerful kind of visual representation, what it looks like. Watch somebody the first time you interact with them all the way to them becoming a closed customer. It's pretty compelling. And really something like this nurture sequence just kind of forms the backbone of that. So I think you'll find as a marketer, the tough part is not putting it in the app. It's just deciding what to communicate and then writing those communications and actually getting it done in a way that matches the customer journey that you want to create. So
not for nothing, you can actually create alerts so that your sales team is notified instantly if somebody in your 100 sort of target accounts is back on the website, right? So it's like, hey, here's somebody we're really trying to close. They're reading the new blog post. Maybe it's time to lob them a phone call or an email. All that is doable and is really, really powerful.
Absolutely.
I do that for Ann. Every time Ann comes to my site, I get so
I've got an Ann alert set up as well. No.
Yeah, it's guys, it's very creepy, but I'm flattered. But oh wow, yeah, gotta back off. I just actually want to build one thing on what actually both Marnie and Chip said, which is that and as Jay mentioned, we started this webinar today. We framed it up as the 9 things, with the most important ones being front loaded. And none of this works without, as Chip said, figuring out what's in the communication, but also how you're communicating it, which is why that humanity and the voice is so important, because that plays into almost everything that you're doing, but especially this nurture sequence. So think less about the automation in the sense like that is absolutely something that you need and you can use, but also think really carefully about the beginning piece of that, like your voice and what you have to offer and what you're saying within those communications.
That's a good point. Sending somebody a whole bunch of emails automatically is not right. Just want to reiterate that. Indeed. Yeah, you can automate someone out of a customer if you're not careful. That is for certain. All right, we've done that. Here we go. Number 9. Number 9. Use social media to provide value. Use social media to take tidbits from your long form content, right? Blog posts, ebooks, etc., and then give those tidbits away one post at a time. What you're trying to do is give away information snacks to ultimately sell knowledge meals. So your goals for social are maybe not what you're thinking your goals for social should be as an agency or as a small business. But our advice to Marnie, the goals for social should be to emphasize and reinforce those campfire songs, the things that make you different and special. Second, to generate downloads of your lead magnets, right? Those longer form pieces of content. But then third, organic interaction with your prospects, which is why setting up lists of your prospects and being able to pay attention to what they're doing in social and sort of meet them where they are, whether that's LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram or anywhere else, ultimately will put you on their radar and ultimately will give you a lot better chance of being their service provider. Marnie, I know you, like many other agency owners, are always thinking, geez, we're trying to help our clients with social, but maybe I'm not really sure what we should be doing in social.
Well, there is that. And it's that humanity piece that we just want to drive home with it. We've used our social just to be active with it and then to use it as another distribution system for the blogs that we've been writing. And when there's a fun event that comes up, then we've been adding social into it with that personal touch. But I'm looking forward to putting a lot more personality into it as well.
And there's some cool things you can do in SharpSpring in this regard, right? You can distribute social through SharpSpring, right? You can use it as the place where you post content. It also will track if your leads in your database have interacted with your social media. And as mentioned earlier, you can use the SharpSpring ads feature to instantly spin up paid ads to any defined group of people who are in your database, which is very slick indeed.
Yeah. Well, I also like it because we can put in information on our competitors and use it as a listening tool to see how our competitors are communicating. So it's a little hidden secret that I've had fun with.
Oh, that's a good one. We don't actually use SharpSpring for that in our organization. I'm gonna spin that up myself. We use it in a different tool set.
It's listening and engagement, Jay. Would love to see you using it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
One thing at a time.
Okay.
Just like Marnie. We have, a couple minutes for questions. Go ahead and put them in the chat. I want to address Tina's question here real quick, which was, how do you communicate these steps to leadership in your organization? Marty, I'm going to throw this to you because, Ann and I working with you and your team is one thing, but you've got to say, all right, we're going to try and tackle these 9 non-negotiables, everybody at Evolved Systems. And how do you kind of get everybody on the same page of the playbook?
Well, we utilize a program called EOS in our business. So it's based on traction. And we have our leadership meetings that are weekly, and then we have our quarterly planning sessions. And during those quarterly planning sessions is where we identify what is the next goal or rock that we're needing to focus in on. So we're already taking these 9 different points that you've provided here. We've prioritized them very similarly to what you have, as well as additional items that we're working on within the agency, and then assigning due dates. And we do a lot of explaining of the why behind it, because we want to make sure that we've got 100% agreement from the team that this is the path that we're moving forward with. And none of the items that you had provided for us were a big surprise, but what it certainly did was confirm that this is the path. You provided a very clear vision, and knowing that it's coming from the experts, we feel confident that this is what we need to do, and the entire team is so appreciative and in agreement that this is what we're going to tackle. So it's a priority of understanding timing and that balance between client deliverable work and then also working on our own projects. And one of the things that we have done is created a project on our own company that is specific to the goals that we need to do, so that we're treating ourselves as our own client. So that means even creating job orders with the specific deliverables and assigning the tasks as to when they need to get done, so that we can in turn understand how long it's going to take. But then we also get to experience what the journey is of what some of our clients enjoy in working with our teams as well. So it's going to be an interesting journey, and I'm really looking forward to reporting back in 6 months and a year from now as to the progress that we've been able to make.
Well, we were thinking Monday, but sure, if you want to take 6 months, that's fine.
Monday's great, no problem.
It's 2:00. We should do that. We should bring Marnie back.
It's a great idea. Yeah, let's do that. We're just sort of an after. What happened after?
We'd love to do that.
I think that's that accountability piece that's just going to put a little pin in it even more, knowing that we do have that accountability, and I appreciate that even more.
Yeah, if we have a webinar in 6 months, we're like, yeah, guys, we didn't get around to it. It's a short webinar.
Yes, but we had other things come up.
I'm feeling it right now. 9 things we should have done, but didn't.
Yeah. Said
In 6 months, we might be in the same room even, which would be amazing. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah, everybody could be together possibly.
Fantastic.
Last chance for questions before we close this up. I see a few folks in the chat. We've got an actual question for us. Please let us know. Thanks again for being here. Chip, any closing remarks from you on the contest? And then I'll talk about the other series that we're doing as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, thank you all again, in this, especially Marnie, for participating and giving us your time, to Jay and Ann, and thanks for being a Sharp Spring customer. And it's just so fun to see how this is gonna help. So let's definitely do the 6 months from now. I'm a little jealous, by the way, that I didn't get my own cartoon drawing by our fabulous Emilio O'Neill, but it was very on brand for the 3 of you guys. Really like that. But that's it. And thanks to everybody for coming today. And hopefully you found it valuable. That's the whole point of this kind of content. So, and Jay's going to tell you about the next one. So maybe we'll bring some slides back up and talk about it.
Absolutely. And I should also mention that we're going to send you the recording of today's program. So if you missed anything, we'll make sure you get a copy of that. We will also tell you about the other parallel program that we're doing called the Agency Smart Growth Series, where I am interviewing 3 geniuses sequentially. We already completed our session with Shama Hyder. The next edition is with Tom Martin. We'll close it out with Jason Swank. You see the dates there on the screen in front of you. It is like Miracle Grow for your agency. It's all about how to grow smarter this year. And the sequence is just like a plant would grow. So our work with Shama was about planting the seed. How do you get more awareness for your agency? My program with Tom coming up in a couple weeks is all about how to turn awareness into actual leads. And we're going to close it out with Jason talking about how to turn leads into actual sales, how to write better proposals, how to price your services more wisely, etc. Each of these sessions are only about 20 minutes long. So really quick, really tight, all meat, no fat. You're going to love it. Go to sharpspring.com/smartgrowth, sharpspring.com/smartgrowth to get tuned into those. And we'll make sure you get a link in the follow-up that we'll send you after this broadcast. Cannot wait. It's going to be super fun. And thank you so much. Always a blast, my friend.
Oh yeah, this is really fantastic, and thank you, Chip, for the opportunity, and Jay, of course, and Marnie. Just I really appreciate your candor, and I know that this can feel a little bit vulnerable, but I really applaud you for just taking this on and being willing to share so much of your business with all of us.
No, I appreciate the opportunity very much. I had shared earlier that when I had sent in the contest form, I was really just hoping that we would have won a book, and that would have been my vacation reading material. Certainly a lot more than what I had anticipated. And
that's awesome.
Jay, to your point of adding, odd numbers to great things, I have 5 words of how I feel with this opportunity that's been gifted to us, and that is honored, grateful. We have certainly been energized. You guys have put a lot of energy back into our agency. We are engaged, and we are extremely motivated. So I thank you for those 5 adjectives that we are currently feeling right now. And I'm excited to circle back with you on it.
That's great. We appreciate that very much. Ann Handley is already creating an acronym.
How did you know? I literally was I was scrambling it in my head.
I know.
Jay and I, we know each other so well. I was thinking, okay, I got this. I got it. I'm gonna
spit it out any second.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yep.
Awesome.
Chip, thank you and the Spring team for putting this together. Really, really fun. It was a blast. And Marnie, it's been an absolute joy and a privilege to work with you and your whole team. We cannot wait to see you put this into practice.
Likewise. Thank you very much.
For sure.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you
All
next
right,
time.
thanks, friends.
Bye, everyone.